Look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
The setup. Why this clash matters. All right, folks, buckle up, because we're diving into a moment that shook daytime TV to its core. Picture this. A conservative firebrand, Charlie Kirk, takes on the untouchable queens of The View, and the internet explodes. Why does this matter? Because it's not just a spat, it's a cultural earthquake. When 5,000 young people showed up at Turning Point USA's summit to hear conservative ideas, the media couldn't handle it. They tried to smear it, but Charlie Kirk, he wasn't having it. This isn't just about one talk show host's meltdown. It's about what happens when polished TV narratives get hit with a truth bomb. Stick around, because this story's got more twists than a reality TV finale. The spark, what set this fire? Let's rewind to the moment it all kicked off.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo.
The View, that sacred stage of daytime TV, decided to take a swing at Turning Point USA's Youth Summit. Whoopi Goldberg, perched on her throne of hot takes, implied the event was cozying up to some unsavory characters. But here's the thing, she didn't just critique the event, she went after the 5,000 high school and college kids who traveled across the country to be there.
Conversation about Turning Point USA. I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me, and it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry. Okay. So.
Big mistake. Charlie Kirk, the guy behind Turning Point USA, caught wind of it and didn't just get mad. He got even. With a podcast mic and a Wi-Fi connection, he launched a takedown so precise it left the internet gasping. Want to know what he said? Keep watching. The meltdown moment. Now, let's talk about the meltdown that had everyone grabbing their popcorn. Whoopi Goldberg, usually untouchable, was delivering her signature sermon on The View when she slipped up. She suggested Turning Point USA's summit was somehow linked to neo-Nazis. Yep, you heard that right. Not the speakers, not the organizers, but the thousands of young attendees. She painted them with a brush so broad it could have covered a billboard. Charlie Kirk didn't storm the studio or yell into a megaphone. Instead, he dropped a calm, calculated response on his podcast that hit like a digital sledgehammer. The result? Whoopi's confidence cracked, and the internet turned it into a meme fest. Curious how it unfolded? Let's break it down.
This Turning Point conference, were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and
I think it's important that every single person that attended that Turning Point, every Republican speak up against the swastikas, against the flags that were waved.
You let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
The clip spread flappable.
And the final point I'll say is this, is Sonny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue? I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more. And
Charlie's counterpunch Charlie Kirk didn't need a guest spot on The View to make his point. From the comfort of his podcast, he laid out the facts like a prosecutor in a courtroom. He pointed out the obvious. Those unsavory characters were protesters outside the event, not inside it. Turning Point USA didn't invite them. They tried to get them removed. But Whoopi's narrative, it conveniently ignored that detail. Charlie didn't just call her out. He dismantled her argument with receipts, logic, and a tone so calm it was almost chilling. By the time he was done, The View's studio felt like it was shrinking. Want to see how the internet reacted? Oh, it gets better. The internet goes wild.
It was a televised takedown.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. Or
There are meltdowns. And then there are televised.
Once Charlie's clip hit the web, it was like tossing a match into a pile of dry leaves. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, every platform lit up with reactions. Memes of Whoopi's stunned expression flooded timelines. Reddit threads dissected every word of Charlie's takedown. People who hadn't watched The View in years were suddenly experts on its commentary style. Why? Because Charlie didn't just expose a bad take. He exposed a pattern. The smug certainty, the applause breaks, the unchallenged hot takes. It all started to unravel, and the best part, The View had to respond. Spoiler, it wasn't pretty. Stick with me to see how they tried to clean it up.
You look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sonny?
yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, it's or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that stuff's fine, I guess.
But when your public image.
White privilege is a racist myth that is rooted in bigotry, trying to classify people based on their skin color. If you are a racist, you have something to apologize for. If you're a white person who is not a racist, you have nothing to apologize for. And anyone who makes you apologize just based on the color of their skin, of your skin, they're the racist and you're not. It's that simple.
Here's the modern media genius.
The apology that wasn't enough, faced with a PR nightmare and a cease and desist letter from Turning Point USA, The View had to do something. Enter Whoopi's apology, or well, what passed for one. On air, she admitted she'd lumped the summit's young attendees in with outside protesters. My bad, she said, before the show cut to commercial faster than you can say damage control. But here's the kicker. Charlie wasn't buying it. He made it clear this wasn't about him. It was about the 5,000 kids smeared on national TV. The apology felt like a band-aid on a broken leg, and the internet wasn't letting it slide. Want to know what Charlie did next? You won't believe it. The legal threat looms. Charlie Kirk didn't just stop at a podcast rant. He and Turning Point USA brought out the big guns, a legal team ready to explore a lawsuit. Why? Because you don't get to smear thousands of young people on live TV and walk away with a shrug. Charlie made it clear this wasn't about him taking hits. He's used to that. It was about protecting the kids who showed up to learn, network, and engage. The threat of legal action sent shockwaves through The View's polished set. Suddenly, those carefree hot takes didn't feel so carefree. Curious how the show's tone changed after this. Let's dive in. The shift in the studio post-takedown, something shifted on The View. The fiery tangents cooled off. The topics got safer. The laughter felt a bit more scripted. It was like someone slipped the producers a memo saying, let's not go viral for the wrong reasons again. Whoopi was still there, still delivering her monologues, but the spark was dimmer. The untouchable aura cracked. Charlie's takedown didn't just challenge a single comment, it challenged the whole machine of daytime TV, where applause often drowns out accountability. The audience noticed noticed and they weren't clapping as loudly anymore. Want to know why this mattered? Keep watching. The power of a passive takedown. Let's talk about why this moment was pure genius. Charlie Kirk didn't need to barge onto the View's set, wave his arms, or scream into a megaphone to make waves. He didn't even need to be in the same zip code. This was a masterclass in the art of the passive takedown, a quiet, calculated strike that let the internet do the heavy lifting. From his podcast studio, Charlie dropped a fact-filled clip that was less like a punch and more like a laser-guided missile. He didn't rant or rage. He just laid out the contradictions in Whoopi's narrative with the kind of clarity that makes you sit up and say, wait, what? He pointed out the obvious. Those protesters were outside, not inside, and Turning Point USA had zero to do with them. It was the kind of logic so sharp it could cut through the thickest TV studio soundproofing. What made it even more delicious? Charlie didn't need the applause breaks or the pre-scripted cheers that The View thrives on. He had something better. Receipts. Cold, hard, undeniable facts that didn't care about studio lighting or audience cues. He exposed the flimsy foundation of Whoopi's hot take, showing how it relied on vibes rather than evidence. And the internet? Oh, it ate it up. Clips of his takedown were sliced, diced, and remixed into YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok stitches faster than you can say viral. People started making reaction videos with titles like Charlie Kirk destroys daytime TV and The View's biggest oof yet. It wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. Viewers who'd never questioned The View's polished narratives were suddenly digging deeper, asking, hold up, is this show just a house of cards? The beauty of this takedown was its efficiency. Charlie didn't need to match Whoopi's volume or charisma. He just needed a Wi-Fi signal and a knack for spotting nonsense. It was like watching a chess grandmaster checkmate an opponent who thought they were playing checkers. He didn't argue with emotion, he argued with precision, building an airtight case that left no room for rebuttal. And the best part, he didn't even stick around to gloat. He dropped the mic, or rather, the podcast episode, and let the internet turn it into a cultural bonfire. This wasn't about left versus right or one personality against another. It was about truth cutting through the fog of TV's manufactured outrage. Want to know how this changed the game forever? Let's wrap it up in the final section. The lasting impact weeks after Charlie Kirk's takedown, the ripple effects were still shaking the digital landscape. That one podcast clip became a kind of internet artifact passed around like a sacred text in group chats, Discord servers, and comment sections. People referenced it in debates, shared it in reaction videos, and used it as shorthand for the moment when daytime TV's glossy facade cracked wide open. The View kept chugging along because, let's be real, TV doesn't just stop, but it wasn't the same. The audience had seen behind the curtain, and once you see the wires and pulleys, the magic trick loses its charm. Viewers started questioning everything: the applause breaks, the rehearsed outrage, the way hot takes were delivered with unshakable certainty but crumbled under a quick Google search. Whoopi Goldberg, once the unassailable queen of daytime commentary, suddenly looked a little less invincible. It wasn't that she stopped talking, she's a pro after all, and the show must go on. But the energy had shifted. Her monologues, once met with thunderous cheers, now felt like they were being fact-checked in real time by an army of keyboard warriors. The internet had turned into a digital courtroom, and Charlie's clip was Exhibit A. People weren't just watching The View anymore, they were auditing it, pausing to rewind, cross-referencing claims, and whispering, is this even true? That's the thing about a moment like this. It doesn't just fade, it lingers, like a catchy song you can't unhear or a meme you can't unsee. And Charlie, he didn't need to keep hammering the point. He'd already won. He moved on to his next podcast, his next event, his next mission, like a general who just captured a hill and didn't bother to plant a flag. The internet did that for him. Entire YouTube channels sprang up analyzing the takedown, with thumbnails screaming, "The View's biggest mistake," and Charlie Kirk ends Whoopi's reign. Reddit threads grew into sprawling essays, picking apart not just this incident, but the entire formula of daytime TV, how it thrives on emotion over evidence, applause over analysis. Even people who didn't care about politics were drawn in, because this wasn't about ideology. It was about calling out a system that had coasted too long on unchallenged narratives. The real kicker? This moment didn't just expose The View, it exposed a broader truth about media. For years, shows like this had operated like fortresses, protected by bright lights, loyal audiences, and the assumption that no one would dare fact-check their sound bites. But Charlie's takedown proved you don't need a studio or a live audience to hold power accountable. All you need is a platform, a point, and the nerve to press record. The internet became the great equalizer, amplifying one guy's logic until it drowned out a TV empire's applause. And the audience, they weren't just clapping anymore. They were thinking, questioning, and demanding better. So what's the takeaway? This wasn't just a viral clip or a fleeting Twitter storm. It was a cultural inflection point, a moment when the shiny veneer of mainstream media took a hit so precise, it didn't even bleed, it just cracked. The question isn't whether Whoopi and The View will bounce back. They probably will, because that's showbiz. The real question is whether the audience will ever watch the same way again. Can they cheer for hot takes knowing a single fact check could unravel them? Can they trust the polished certainty when they've seen it wobble? Next time you tune into a talk show, listen closely. You might hear the faint hum of the internet fact checking in the background, ready to call out the next emperor with no clothes. So what do you think? Did Charlie Kirk change the game? Or is this just another blip in TV land? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're Team Truth, and subscribe for more breakdowns that cut through the noise.